The cry in the dark. Eli was alone on the alien planet. The sky was purple. The trees were tall and glowing. Strange birds flew overhead, making soft clicking sounds. The ground was soft under his boots, and the wind carried a smell he couldn't describe. He checked his scanner. No signs of life. Just like the last 10 miles. "This place is dead," Eli said to himself, sighing. He was a scout for the Earth exploration fleet. His job was to explore new planets and map them. Nothing dangerous had happened for weeks. Just trees, rocks, and more trees. Boring. But something didn't feel right today. The trees were too quiet. No birds. No wind. Then he heard it. A cry. Very soft. Almost like a whisper. Eli froze. He looked around, confused. "Did I imagine that?" he said. He waited. Nothing. He took a few steps forward. Then it came again. A cry, but this time clearer. It was a voice. Not human. Not a language he knew. But it was crying. Scared. Weak. Eli's heart beat faster. "There's someone out here," he whispered. He checked his communicator. The screen blinked red. No signal. He pressed the emergency button anyway, hoping it might send a message to the ship above. Then he followed the sound. He pushed through thick plants, stepped over glowing roots, and walked deeper into the forest. The air grew colder. The light dimmer. The cry came again. Closer now. He found broken branches, scratch marks on trees. Something had been running. Something, or someone, had been chased. Then he saw it. A small hole in the side of a mossy hill. A cave, half covered by plants. The cry came from inside. Eli pulled out his flashlight and entered. Inside, the cave was damp and dark. Drops of water fell from the ceiling. The cry grew louder, now almost like a whimper. Then he saw her, a small alien girl, curled up in the corner. Her skin was pale blue. Her hair shimmered like silver threads. Her arm was stuck under a heavy vine, and her legs were shaking. She looked up with wide, glowing eyes. Please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Help." Eli dropped to one knee. "Hey, don't move. I'm here to help." She flinched when he touched the vine. "It's okay," Eli said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." He pulled out his knife and carefully cut the vine away. It had sharp thorns. Poisonous, maybe. He worked fast. The girl gasped as her arm came free. "Thank you," she whispered. Eli gave her a sip of water and checked her wounds. Nothing serious. Just bruises and cuts. "What's your name?" he asked. "Severa," she said slowly. "Okay, Severa. I'm Eli. You're safe now." But Severa shook her head. "No," she said. "Not safe. It's coming." Eli looked toward the entrance. "What is?" She grabbed his hand. "The monster. It hunts minds. It found me. It." Crack. A sound outside the cave. A branch snapping. Then another. And another. Something was walking. Slow, heavy steps. Eli turned off his flashlight. He pulled Severa close and moved them deeper into the cave's shadows. The footsteps stopped outside. Then, silence. Eli held his breath. Severa was shaking now. "Too late," she whispered. "It's here." A shadow moved across the cave entrance. It was tall, wrong-shaped. Its arms were too long. Its head tilted, listening. Eli watched in horror as it stepped halfway into the cave. It didn't see them. Not yet. It sniffed the air. Its skin moved like liquid. Its eyes glowed faint red. It didn't blink. Severa whispered, "It remembers voices. It copies them. It can sound like me." Eli looked at her. "Then how do I know you're the real one?" She looked scared, then smiled weakly. "Because I'm still scared. The fake one never is." Eli nodded. The shadow stood still for a moment. then turned and left. Silence again. Eli let out a slow breath. He looked at Sci-Fi. "We're getting out of here," he said. But Sci-Fi looked at him with fear in her eyes. "No, we're in its home now, and it never lets anyone leave." The hunter in the mist. The night fog rolled in thick and slow, like it had a mind of its own. Eli stepped out of the cave with Sci-Fi weakly leaning against him. Her skin glowed faint blue under the misty moonlight. Every breath she took was shaky. Her feet barely touched the ground, but she whispered something over and over. "Keep moving, keep moving." Eli listened. Every tree seemed too tall now. Every shadow moved. The forest, once beautiful and glowing, had turned into a dark maze. Behind them, deep inside the trees, came a low growl. Not loud, not fast, but steady. It was following. They found a small hill and climbed behind it. Eli made a quick shelter using camo fabric from his pack. It blended into the alien plants like it belonged there. He laid Sci-Fi down gently. She stared at the trees. Her eyes didn't blink. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No," she whispered, "but I can feel it." "Feel what?" "The hunter. It's thinking." Eli raised an eyebrow. "You can feel its mind." She nodded. "My kind. We were bred with high empathy. We feel emotion like heat. That thing, it doesn't feel hunger. It doesn't feel pain. It feels want. It wants minds. Intelligence. It hunts smart creatures." Eli checked his weapon. Just a laser pistol. He knew from training that laser weapons didn't work well on certain species. Some creatures evolved to absorb energy. He had one grenade, one knife. Not enough. "What is it exactly?" he asked. Sci-Fi sat up slowly. "We call them mind hunters. They were created during the Old War, made by splicing genes from creatures that could track thoughts. Then left behind, forgotten. But they didn't die. They learned. And you, how long have you been stuck here?" She didn't speak right away. Then she looked at him, eyes wet. 13 days. Eli stared. "You survived that long?" She nodded. "Barely. I ran, hid, slept in trees. It plays games. It copies sounds. It wants me scared." The wind shifted. Then, a voice in the distance. "Help, please." Eli froze. He looked at Sci-Fi. That was her voice. Exactly the same. But she hadn't opened her mouth. "It's copying me," she said softly. "It wants to confuse you. Make you leave me behind." The voice came again. "Please, it hurts. Closer now." Eli felt a chill run down his spine. Suddenly, a branch cracked nearby. Then another. He pulled Sci-Fi behind the thickest tree and held his breath. From the fog, a shape appeared. Not big. It looked like a child. But the skin was gray. The face was blurred. It flickered like static. The voice came again from the figure's mouth. "Help me, please." But the mouth didn't move. It was just a sound recording. Eli gripped his knife. The fake child turned its head toward him. Its eyes blinked sideways, like a lizard. Then, in a voice that didn't belong to Sci-Fi, it spoke again. "You think you can save her? You bleed like the others." Eli threw the knife right into the thing's chest. It didn't scream. It didn't fall. It just melted into smoke. Gone. Eli backed away. "We have to move," he said. "Now." Sci-Fi stood shakily. "This way. I know a place. My people built a small shelter in the cliffs. Long ago. It might still be there." They moved fast. The forest got thicker. Mist hung like curtains, and every now and then, something followed. A shadow. A whisper. A laugh that didn't belong. Then, Eli saw it. High above, a pair of red eyes. Watching. Unblinking. They reached the cliffs. Tall, dark stone walls rose in front of them. covered in green moss. Sci-Fi pointed to a crack between the rocks. "It's here. Hidden door." Eli pulled aside the moss and found an old alien panel. He wiped dust away. Strange glowing symbols lit up. "Can you read it?" he asked. She placed her hand on it. Nothing happened. "No, the energy is gone," she whispered. Eli thought quickly. "Then we'll hide here. No more running." He started placing sensor alarms around the small area. If the thing got close, they'd know. Sci-Fi sat beside him. Then she looked up, and her voice dropped to a whisper. "You know why it doesn't kill quickly." Eli glanced at her. "Why?" She stared at the trees. "Because it feeds on fear. It keeps the smartest ones alive the longest. It wants you to think, to guess, to go mad." Eli was quiet. Then a new sound came through the fog. Footsteps. Running. Fast. Someone was coming. He raised his pistol. A figure burst through the trees. It was a human. Another scout. Or that's what Eli thought, until he saw the man's face. It was blank. No eyes. No mouth. Just skin. And behind it, something pulsed. It wasn't a man. It was wearing human skin. Sci-Fi screamed. "Run." They ran along the cliff edge. Behind them, the fake human dropped to all fours and chased them like a beast. Eli turned and fired. The laser hit it and passed through. It laughed, but not with a mouth. With its chest, like its body was a speaker. Sci-Fi turned and did something strange. She raised her hand, and her palm glowed. A bright light flashed, pure white. The creature stopped. It screamed, shaking like it was in pain. Then it vanished. Eli stared. "What was that?" I don't know," she said, breathing hard. "My mother could do that. I never could. Until now." They stood there, breathing hard, quiet. Eli looked up. The mist was thicker now, but the forest was silent. Too silent. Sci-Fi whispered, "We've heard it. Now it will send more." Eli looked out over the trees, and then he saw them. Dozens, maybe more. Red eyes in the fog. Watching, waiting. The forest of eyes. The red eyes were everywhere. Dozens, maybe hundreds. They floated in the thick alien mist, hanging like stars between twisted trees. Some blinked. Some didn't. All of them stared in one direction. At Eli and Sci-Fi. Eli backed away slowly, keeping his body between the girl and the glowing forest. His laser pistol shook slightly in his hand. "I don't think they're moving," he whispered. Sci-Fi didn't answer. Her eyes were wide. Her breathing fast. "They don't need to," she said quietly. "They'd want us to move first. It's part of the game." Eli swallowed hard. "Game?" Sci-Fi nodded. "Mind hunters test their prey. Before they strike, they try to break your mind." "Great," Eli muttered. "So we're stuck in a haunted forest with creatures that treat us like a puzzle." A light breeze swept through the trees. The eyes swayed with it, just slightly. Then something new happened. The forest spoke, but not with its own voice. With Eli's. "Stay here," the voice said calmly. "I'll protect you." It sounded exactly like him. Tone, breath, words. Sci-Fi froze. Eli's blood ran cold. "That wasn't me." Then came another voice. "Run. It's too late." It was Sci-Fi's voice now. But Sci-Fi hadn't opened her mouth. More voices followed, one after the other, copies of the two of them. Sometimes calm, sometimes screaming, sometimes laughing. They came from the trees, from the fog, from nowhere. The forest had become a mirror, not of light, but of sound and thought. Eli pulled Sci-Fi by the hand. "We're not staying here. Move." They pushed forward through the thick roots and vines. The ground felt strange beneath their boots, like it pulsed slightly, as if breathing. Eli placed signal markers behind them, small devices that sent out a weak pulse. He had 5 left. If they got lost, these would be his trail back. If there was a vac. After half an hour of walking, they entered a new section of the forest. It was silent again. No voices, no wind, but the eyes. They were still there. Now closer, hanging from branches like fruit. Cyvera touched one tree trunk gently. "This part is older," she whispered, "from the First War. Maybe even older than that." "The First War?" Eli asked. "Yes, the war between the living and the made." Eli looked at her. "You mean the war between organic species and machines?" "No," she said, shaking her head. "Not machines. The ones who made machines. Before us. Before humans. Before my people. They built these forests, not grew them. These trees. They're not wood." Eli stepped closer to one and tapped it with his knife. It rang softly. Metal. Covered in moss. A perfect illusion. "This whole place is artificial." "Yes, but alive in a way. Connected. The mind hunters don't just live here. They are part of it." Suddenly, a new voice echoed around them. But this one was different. It wasn't a copy. It was speaking to them directly. "Why do you run?" It came from everywhere, deep, slow, and curious. "Why do you protect the broken one?" Eli pointed his pistol into the fog. "Show yourself." Cyvera grabbed his arm. "It's the Queen," she whispered. "She's watching now." Eli's finger hovered near the trigger. Then, from behind them, footsteps. But only one set. Not fast. Deliberate. He turned quickly and aimed. A figure stood there. It looked like him. Same armor, same face, same scar above the eyebrow. "Put the weapon down," the copy said. "She's not worth it." Cyvera stared. "That's not just your voice. That's your mind." Eli shook his head. "No, that thing's not me." The copy smiled. "Aren't you tired, Eli? You're not a hero. You're just another lost scout. No one's coming. The girl will die. Save yourself." Eli didn't respond. The copy took a step forward. "Your mind is loud, so full of fear, anger, memories of pain. That's what we feed on." Eli fired. The bolt passed through. Smoke. They kept moving, faster now. The trees thinned slightly. And then, up ahead, a shape. A tall tower, broken and covered in vines. Alien symbols ran up the side. Cyvera gasped. "That's it. That's one of the listening posts." "Listening for what?" Eli asked. "For her," Cyvera said darkly. "For the Queen." They approached the tower. Its door was cracked open. Inside, soft blue light pulsed from old machines. Eli stepped in first, gun raised. No movement. But the moment they entered, the voices stopped. No copies. No sounds. Silence. Sweet, perfect silence. "It's protected," Cyvera said. "These walls block thought. It's why the hunters never come in." Eli slumped down against a wall. He hadn't realized how tight his chest felt until now. "All right," he said. "We stay here for now. Regroup. Plan." Cyvera nodded and touched the central console. It flickered. Then a hologram appeared, a map. Dozens of red dots blinked around them. "Those are the hunters?" Eli asked. "Yes," she said. "And that?" She pointed to a large blinking mark in the distance. "Is the Queen." She was moving. Slowly, but straight toward them. Suddenly, the tower began to shake. A deep, humming sound came from below. Eli stood. "What is that?" Cyvera's eyes widened. "She's calling them. All of them." Eli checked his gear. "How long before she gets here?" Cyvera didn't answer. Instead, she turned to him slowly. "I didn't tell you everything," she said. Eli narrowed his eyes. What now? She's not just hunting minds, Severa whispered. She's hunting me. Why? Severa stepped into the soft blue light. Her skin shimmered. Her eyes turned white. Because I'm not just a survivor. I'm the last daughter of her enemy. The trap of shadows. Eli stared at Severa. The tower lights flickered. Outside, the fog was alive with whispers again. But inside the listening post, her voice was the only one he heard. Last daughter of her enemy. His chest tightened. What does that mean? Severa stepped out of the blue light. Her glow faded slowly, her eyes returning to normal. But her face was calm. Too calm. My mother was a war leader, she said. Long ago. She was one of the few who stood against the Mind Queen when her hive first rose from the ashes of the war. You mean the First War? Eli asked. No, she said quietly. Before that. The war before history. The war no one wanted to remember. Eli paced the room. His mind was racing. She's hunting you. Not just because you're smart, but because of who you are. Severa nodded. I'm not just prey to her. I'm a memory. A threat. Eli looked at the blinking red dot on the map. It had moved again. Closer. And every time it moved, more smaller red dots came with it. A full swarm. She's gathering everything she has, he said. Just for you. For us, Severa corrected. You're part of this now. He laughed bitterly. Lucky me. Suddenly, the tower lights turned red. A loud click echoed from above, like something had unlocked. What was that? Eli asked. Severa turned to the ceiling. The tower is old. Broken. The Queen is interfering with its systems. The main console blinked, then shut off completely. Eli ran to the door and looked outside. The fog was gone, but not naturally. It had been pulled away, sucked out like breath before a scream. Now the forest looked dead. The trees didn't move. The leaves were frozen in place. Nothing made a sound. He stepped out, just slightly. The ground crunched beneath his boot. Dry. Too dry. He crouched down and touched the soil. It cracked like glass. Something's wrong with the forest, he said. No, Severa replied. It's not wrong. It's been changed. That's when they saw it. A figure, standing between the trees. Not moving. Not blinking. But this time, it wasn't Eli's copy. It wasn't Severa's either. It was someone else. A young girl. Pale skin. Silver eyes. Wearing Earth Scout armor. Eli froze. That's impossible. He stepped forward slowly. The girl looked familiar. Then he remembered. Amira. She was part of a lost Earth team sent to this planet over a year ago. She had vanished, presumed dead. Eli raised his voice. Amira, is that you? The girl tilted her head. Then she smiled, an empty, wrong smile. Severa stepped in front of him. That's not your friend, she said. Eli's voice dropped. How do you know? Because I can't feel anything from her, Severa whispered. No fear. No sadness. No life. The girl blinked, and her face melted. Not like skin. Like paper catching fire. Her head dissolved into black mist, revealing red, empty sockets underneath. She didn't scream. She just opened her mouth. And the forest roared. Branches fell. Trees bent. Wind slammed into the tower. Eli grabbed Severa and pulled her back inside. The door slammed shut behind them. They're forcing us out, he said. She's changing the forest to make this place uninhabitable. Severa touched the wall. We're not in a forest anymore, she whispered. We're in her maze. Eli opened the floor panel beneath the console. Old wires, power packs, storage crates, and a black box with strange markings. He pulled it out. Severa's eyes widened. That's a memory core. Ancient tech. Might still work. Eli opened the box. Inside was a glass orb, glowing dimly. When he touched it, A voice spoke inside his head. Emergency protocol. Trap engaged. He frowned. Trap. Suddenly, a map appeared, not on the console, but in the air, floating. It showed a winding path through the forest. One narrow line. Only one. All the other paths are closing. Severa said. She wants to guide us. Somewhere. She's not chasing us, Eli said. She's leading us. To what? Severa asked. But they both already knew. The Queen. They followed the path. The air was thicker now, heavy like smoke. The ground was smoother, too smooth, like metal. Eli looked down and tapped it with his boot. It echoed. We're not in the forest anymore, he said. We're walking on something artificial. A ship. A structure. Severa's face was pale. No, we're walking on her. This whole place, it's part of her body. Eli stopped cold. The planet. Not the planet, she said, but something deep under it. A hive mind. A living maze built around her real body. She built it over centuries, Severa whispered. Lured prey. Absorbed their minds. Learned everything. They walked for hours. Or maybe minutes. Time didn't feel real anymore. Eli placed his final signal marker. It blinked twice. Then stopped. No signal. No way back. Just forward. Then the path ended. A clearing. In the center, a pit. Wide. Black. Bottomless. And from it rose a throne. Made of bones. Made of metal. Made of memories. And sitting on it, the Queen. She wasn't large. Not monstrous. But she was terrible to look at. Her body shimmered between forms. Human. Alien. Machine. Shadow. Her voice came from inside their minds. Welcome, daughter of fire. Welcome, human of storms. Severa stepped forward. You made this maze to trap me. The Queen laughed. No, I made it to transform you. All fear sharpens the soul. I fed you fear so you'd awaken. Eli raised his pistol, but it melted in his hand, gone like a dream. You never brought weapons here, the Queen said. Only thoughts. Only pain. Severa took a deep breath. Then did something strange. She closed her eyes, and her body began to change. Her glow returned, brighter than ever. Her hair lifted like fire. Her skin shimmered like stars. You wanted to awaken me, she said. Now see what I really am. The Queen rose from her throne. So be it, she said. Let the trap become your test. And then the maze began to close. The Queen below. The ground beneath their feet trembled. The once silent maze was now alive, shifting with the presence of something far more dangerous than either Eli or Severa had ever imagined. Severa stepped forward, her body glowing with a strange, almost ethereal light. Her eyes burned with intensity. The energy around her pulsed like a heartbeat. Eli couldn't take his eyes off her. In the span of a few minutes, she transformed into something new, something powerful. And yet, the fear in her expression was impossible to ignore. The Queen's throne, this throne of bones, of metal, of memories, still stood before them. But now it felt different. It wasn't just a seat anymore. It was the epicenter of a living force, drawing the entire maze toward it. The air thickened with pressure. You've awakened me, Severa said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. Now what? The Queen, sitting atop her throne of twisted remains, tilted her head. She was no longer a creature of form, but a shifting mass of light, shadow, and twisted memories. She was both nothing and everything, an ancient presence beyond comprehension. Her voice echoed in their minds. You were never meant to wake, child of fire. Severa's glowing eyes narrowed. Then why am I still here? Because you are her. The Queen's words were like cold whispers, sliding into their very thoughts. You were born of fire, of war, of destruction. I am the end of all things. And you, Sivara, are my final challenge." The floor beneath their feet shook again, and a low rumbling filled the air. A portal appeared, swirling with dark energy at the far end of the throne room. It pulsed with power, almost like the heart of the queen herself. "I am the queen, the end of all things," the queen's voice echoed once more. "This world, this maze, is but a fragment of me. You've entered my mind, my soul, and now you will face me." Eli looked at Sivara, his hand reaching for his weapon, but he knew it was useless. The queen was beyond anything a mere gun could handle. She was not just an alien or a creature. She was the embodiment of something far greater. Sivara stood still, her eyes locked on the swirling portal. "Then let me see the end." The queen's laughter echoed in their minds, soft and cruel. "You can't even begin to understand the end, child. But you will soon." Suddenly, the air shifted. The walls of the maze closed in, the entire world around them folding into an even tighter space. The ground split open, revealing a massive pit that stretched beyond their vision. In the center of the pit, the queen's true form began to take shape. She was not a physical being, not a creature of flesh and bone. She was something darker. Her form was a swirling mass of light and shadow, constantly shifting between different shades: humanoid, monstrous, alien, and machine-like. Her face was a blur, and her eyes, those eyes, burned with an intensity that could freeze anyone in their tracks. But Sivara didn't freeze. Instead, she raised her hands, glowing with an energy that matched the queen's dark power. The ground trembled even more fiercely now, but Sivara stood her ground. The queen's voice echoed in their minds again. "You were foolish to think you could fight me, Sivara." The words weren't just spoken. They were felt, like cold fingers digging into their hearts. "I created this maze. I am the mind behind every fear you felt, every loss you've experienced. I am your mother's legacy, your father's regret, your people's downfall." Sivara's face hardened. "You are nothing but a shadow, a reflection of all the things you've stolen from others." The queen's form rippled, splitting into hundreds of smaller fragments. They danced around Sivara and Eli like whispers in the wind. "You cannot stop me. I am the void, the end of all things." Eli watched in awe as Sivara's power began to grow. Her body shone brighter than before, a radiant fire against the queen's consuming darkness. She stepped forward, and the ground trembled beneath her feet. "I will not let you take everything," Sivara said, her voice now filled with a quiet fury. "This world doesn't belong to you, and neither does my soul." Eli could feel the power radiating off her. He felt it like a wave of heat crashing into him, but he also felt a deep, growing sadness in her heart, a sorrow born of generations of loss and destruction. And yet, it was the only thing that could stand against the queen's power. The queen's form shifted again, more monstrous this time, her voice growing in volume until it was deafening. "You cannot fight me, Sivara." Her voice cracked through the air like thunder. "You are the last of your kind. There is no one left to save you, no one left to fight for you." Sivara's eyes burned brighter. "I don't need anyone else to fight for me." She lifted her hand to the swirling mass of darkness that was the queen, and suddenly, the maze began to collapse around them. The walls twisted and bent like paper, folding in on themselves. The queen's form wavered, flickering like a dying flame. Eli ran to Sivara's side. "What are you doing?" She didn't answer at first. Her concentration was focused on the queen's dark energy, which was slowly beginning to collapse inward. The queen's power, her very essence, was fading, breaking apart, and Sivara was pulling it into herself. "This is the only way," Sivara said softly, but with determination. "I can't destroy her, but I can trap her. In the same way she trapped me. I will take her power, use it to seal her away." Eli's eyes widened. "Sivara, no, this isn't what you want. It'll consume you." Sivara turned to him, her face strained but resolute. "It's the only way to stop her. She's too strong, too dangerous. She's the end, Eli. But I'm not afraid to face it. The queen's voice howled in fury, but it was becoming weaker. The essence of the maze, the life of the forest, the energy of the creatures that roamed it, was being absorbed into Severa. The dark energy wrapped around her like chains, but Severa fought back, her glowing form burning brighter than ever before. And then, with a final, desperate scream, the queen's form collapsed. The maze was silent. The ground stopped shaking. The air grew still. Severa collapsed to her knees, exhausted. The power she had just absorbed left her trembling, but there was a faint smile on her lips. "It's done," she whispered. Eli knelt beside her, concern flooding his chest. "You're okay, right?" Severa nodded weakly. "I will be. But the maze won't hold her forever. One day, someone else will come to her." Eli helped her stand. "Then we'll be ready when that happens." The maze around them began to fade, crumbling into nothingness. The world they had once known, this twisted alien place, was now gone. The queen was sealed away, and her maze, her mind, was no more. But Severa and Eli knew that this was just the beginning. The last test. The maze was gone. The dark, suffocating presence of the queen, the ancient being that had consumed an entire world, was no longer there. The walls had crumbled, the fog had cleared, and the eerie hum of power was gone. The land had been swallowed by silence. But Eli knew this wasn't the end. Severa stood beside him, her body still glowing faintly, but she seemed different now. She was thinner, weaker. The immense power she had absorbed from the queen had drained her in a way that left her more fragile than Eli had ever seen. Her eyes, those bright, burning eyes, were dull, clouded with exhaustion. She leaned heavily against a rock, taking shallow breaths. "Are you okay?" Eli asked, his voice soft but filled with concern. She nodded slowly but didn't look up. "I sealed her away, but that doesn't mean she's gone for good. I can feel her, trying to claw her way back. But for now, the maze is gone. The forest is free." Eli didn't say anything. He could feel it too. There was a strange emptiness in the air now. The haunting presence of the queen had faded, but the land still carried her mark. It was like a wound on the world, a scar that couldn't be erased. "What now?" Eli asked. Severa closed her eyes. "Now we leave. We get out of this place, and we figure out what to do with the power I've taken." Eli felt the weight of her words. The power that had once belonged to the queen was now inside Severa, and that was both a gift and a curse. It was a dangerous thing to carry, a burden that could turn even the purest of hearts dark. They began their journey back to the surface, but the path ahead was uncertain. The world around them was no longer the alien forest they had once known. It was something new, twisted, disjointed, like the land itself had been reshaped by the queen's influence. The sky was darker, the air heavier. Eli kept a watchful eye on Severa. She had grown quieter, and he noticed how her steps had become slower. Her body swayed slightly as if she were struggling to keep her balance. He wasn't sure if it was the power she had absorbed or something else. They'd walked in silence for what felt like hours. Every now and then, Severa would stumble, and Eli would catch her, steadying her as they continued forward. Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to rumble. Severa's eyes widened. She glanced at Eli. "It's starting." "What is?" Eli asked. "The test," she replied. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Before Eli could ask what she meant, the ground cracked open beneath their feet, sending them both tumbling into the depths. They fell for what felt like an eternity. When they finally landed, it wasn't on solid ground. It was soft, like they had landed on some kind of organic matter. Eli groaned and tried to push himself up, but his head was spinning. He looked over at Severa, who was already on her feet, her face pale but determined. "Where are we?" Eli asked, rubbing his sore back. Severa didn't answer at first. She stood still, her eyes focused on something ahead of them. Slowly, she turned toward Eli, her expression unreadable. "This is where it all began," she said softly. "This is the place where my mother faced the queen." Eli's gaze shifted, trying to make sense of the space around them. It was dark, but there were faint bioluminescent lights scattered across the floor, illuminating the area in an eerie glow. The walls were smooth, almost like glass, and the air was thick with something alien, something familiar, but not in a good way. Sci-Fi took a step forward, and Eli followed closely behind her, unsure of what they were walking into. It felt like they were inside the queen's mind once again, a place of power and fear, a place that was neither fully physical nor spiritual. They moved deeper into the space, following the faint glow. The path ahead was narrow, twisting like a maze, with walls that seemed to move as they walked, as if reacting to their presence. "It's testing us," Severa said, her voice trembling slightly. "The queen didn't just create this maze for me. She created it for anyone who would come after. And she left something behind, something that will keep anyone from truly defeating her." Eli glanced at her. "What are we going to face?" "The last test," Severa replied. "A trial to see if we're worthy of carrying on, worthy of defeating her for good." As she spoke, a low hum filled the air, growing louder by the second. Eli's pulse quickened, his hand instinctively moving to his weapon. But as he glanced at Severa, he realized that nothing could prepare them for what was coming. The walls around them began to pulse with dark energy, and the light dimmed. The path ahead was now shrouded in shadow. Sci-Fi stopped in her tracks, her expression turning grim. "This is it." Suddenly, the shadows before them shifted, revealing figures that were moving, but not in a natural way. They weren't human, nor alien. They were monsters, made of darkness, shifting and flickering like smoke. But they weren't just physical. Eli could feel their presence deep in his mind. Their voices, or rather, their thoughts, whispered directly into his consciousness. "You are not worthy. You cannot stop what has already begun." Eli clenched his fists, trying to shake the fear that crept into his mind. But it wasn't just him. Severa was affected too. She staggered as if she had been struck by a sudden wave of pain. "I won't let them break me," she muttered to herself, her hands clenched into fists. "I can't let them win." The shadows around them grew thicker, suffocating the light that had once filled the space. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. "She is the last. She will always be the last. You cannot escape your fate. You will fail." Eli could see the figures beginning to form, the shadows taking on solid shapes, becoming tall, grotesque figures with glowing eyes, their bodies twisting in unnatural ways. But Severa stepped forward, her body now glowing with the power she had absorbed. She raised her hand, and the shadows around them recoiled, writhing as though they were being burned. "You're wrong," Severa said, her voice steady despite the strain. "I won't be the last. I'm not alone." The shadows shuddered. The figures began to tremble and fade, their forms disintegrating into dark mist. But then, just as the last shadow vanished, a new figure appeared. It was unlike the others, familiar and yet not. It was Severa, but it wasn't her. This version of Severa was taller, her face twisted in rage, her eyes glowing with an unnatural light. She was like a dark mirror of Severa, a twisted reflection of everything the queen had tried to create. "This is what you could become," the dark Severa whispered. "You will never escape the power of the queen. It is inside you. It is who you are." Severa's body trembled, but she didn't flinch. "No, I am not her. I am not my mother's legacy. I am my own." The dark version of Severa laughed, a cruel, hollow sound. "You will be." Eli could feel the battle raging inside Severa. He saw the conflict on her face, the struggle to hold on to her humanity, her light. The queen's influence was powerful, but Severa was stronger. She had to be the final choice. The air inside the dark chamber was thick with tension. The walls seemed to breathe, undulating ever so slightly, as though the entire space was alive, responding to the conflict that had just unfolded. Eli watched as Sivera stood before her dark reflection, an embodiment of everything the queen had intended for her. The twisted version of Sivera towered over her, its glowing eyes filled with contempt. "You're not me," Sivera said through gritted teeth, her voice low and steady despite the chaos in her mind. The dark Sivera's lips twisted into a cruel smile. "I am everything you fear." Eli felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He had never seen Sivera like this, standing face to face with herself, forced to confront the power that lay within her. The queen had made her a vessel, an instrument of war, of destruction, but Sivera was something more. She was human, strong, resilient, and capable of love, compassion, and sacrifice. And she wasn't about to let the queen's darkness consume her. "You don't have to do this," Eli said, his voice filled with urgency. He stepped forward, his hand reaching out toward Sivera. "You can fight this. You don't have to become her." The dark Sivera sneered, her form rippling like liquid shadows. "It's already too late, human. She's mine." But Sivera stood firm, her hands clenched at her sides, her body glowing with a radiance that pushed back the darkness. The light emanating from her grew brighter, more intense, until the chamber around them seemed to dissolve into pure light. "I will never be what she wanted me to be," Sivera said, her voice rising in strength. "I will not carry her legacy. I will not be her weapon." Eli's heart raced as he watched Sivera fight. The dark version of her was a reflection of everything the queen had tried to make her believe, that she was destined for destruction, that the power she had was meant to be used for control, for power. But Sivera had made her choice. She was not the queen's puppet. The dark Sivera lashed out, a wave of darkness erupting from her hands, but Sivera's light pushed it back, radiating with an intensity that seemed to shatter the very air around them. "You are nothing," Sivera declared. "A shadow, a memory. You have no place here." The dark Sivera recoiled, her form flickering, as if she were struggling to hold her shape. But the battle was not over yet. The queen's influence still lingered, and Sivera could feel it tugging at her, trying to pull her into the abyss. Eli could see the strain on her face. The weight of the power she had taken from the queen was immense. He could feel the danger in the air, the risk of Sivera losing herself to the very thing she was fighting against. "Sivera," Eli called out, his voice desperate. "You don't have to do this alone. Let me help you." She turned to him, her eyes glowing with the same fierce determination that had kept her alive all this time. But there was something else in her eyes, a sadness, a sorrow that ran deeper than anything Eli could understand. "I don't know if I can hold on much longer, Eli," she said softly. "The power inside me is too much. It's like a storm I can't control. I feel it pulling me under." Eli reached out, taking her hands in his. "You're not alone anymore. I'm here. We're in this together. You don't have to face this alone." Sivera's eyes softened, and for a moment, the weight of the power pressing down on her seemed to lift. She looked into Eli's eyes, and for the first time since they had arrived, she smiled, a faint, fragile smile. "I wish I could believe that," she whispered. "But this isn't just about the power. This is about who I am, and what I've become." Eli shook his head, not letting go of her hands. "You're more than just the queen's legacy. You're not what she made you. You're your own person." The dark Sivera shrieked in fury, her form blurring and shifting violently, as if the queen's very essence was fighting back, trying to reclaim her. The chamber shook, the walls crumbling into dust as the force of the battle intensified. Sivera closed her eyes, drawing in a deep breath. She could feel the power surging within her, the power of the queen, the power of destruction. It was so strong, so overwhelming. But she could also feel Eli's presence, grounding her. His belief in her, his support, was the anchor she needed. She turned back to face the dark version of herself, her eyes blazing with determination. "No," Severa said, her voice steady. "You are not me. I choose who I am." In an instant, Severa reached out with her hands, channeling the immense power within her. The light that radiated from her grew brighter, becoming a beacon of pure energy. The dark Severa screamed in agony, her form flickering as the light burned through the shadows. The power of the Queen's essence seemed to recoil, unable to withstand Severa's will. Eli stood back, watching in awe as Severa fought with everything she had. The ground beneath them trembled, and the very air seemed to crackle with energy. He knew this was the moment that would decide everything. With a final, desperate cry, the dark Severa shattered, her form dissipating into nothingness. The darkness that had consumed her vanished in an instant, and the power that had once belonged to the Queen was now gone. Severa collapsed to her knees, the light around her dimming, leaving her breathless. Eli rushed to her side, supporting her as she swayed. "You did it," he said, his voice filled with awe and relief. Severa managed a weak smile. "We did it, Eli. Together." But as she looked around the shattered chamber, something still felt wrong. The air was still thick with the remnants of the Queen's power, and Severa could feel that the battle was far from over. The Queen had been defeated, but her influence had left a lasting scar on this world, and on Severa herself. Eli helped Severa to her feet, his hand steadying her as she struggled to regain her strength. She looked at him, her expression conflicted. "What now?" she asked quietly. "What do we do now?" Eli didn't have an answer at first. They had faced unimaginable odds and had come out on the other side. But the road ahead was uncertain. The Queen's influence might have been gone, but Severa still carried the weight of the power she had absorbed. And the world they had once known had been forever changed. "We keep moving forward," Eli said, his voice firm with resolve. "One step at a time." Severa nodded, a spark of hope returning to her eyes. "Together," she whispered. "Together." As they turned to leave the crumbling chamber, the light from Severa's body began to fade, but it was no longer a sign of weakness. It was a sign of balance. The storm inside her had passed, and now she was at peace with herself. For the first time, Severa felt the weight of the power she had absorbed no longer threatening to consume her. Instead, she had found a new strength, a strength not born of the Queen's legacy, but of her own will. And with Eli by her side, she knew they could face whatever came next.